Oh my goodness, the With Love Meghan Season 2 trailer just dropped. It's as bad as you'd expect.
What the hell for? The fruit plate was crap.
Because they put like another oldies track, Rockin' Robin, cheat, cheat, tweet. They do that song. But I removed it. And it's actually even funnier and even more boring because the only energy this trailer had was that song.
I love the idea of spending time together and finding new ways to show people you care.
Oh, she's clapping for us. That's a meme. Why is she blinking before she claps?
So we can even make a salad. Let's just go and eat cheese. You know that's my life dream.
I love these moments of discovery and beauty. So let's be curious together.
It's even worse. So you ready for the maximum cringe?
The opening shot was supposed to be charming. That perfectly timed pop of the toaster, the warm giggle, the way Meghan turns like she's been caught in an effortless moment of joy. But even in those first few seconds, something felt staged, like a director had whispered, "End cue," right before the toast sprang up.
I literally can't, exactly. That's about the face I would think, like, I can't even imagine the pain that would have to put me through.
Then came the berries, tumbling toward what looked suspiciously like a drainage grate, shot in soft focus as if no one would notice where they were landing, and all of it framed inside that home we've seen before, the same glossy Montecito setup that insiders have long claimed isn't even her real kitchen. The walls pristine, the counters immaculate, the lighting almost too perfect for a casual Saturday morning. It's the kind of trailer that wants you to feel like you're peeking into an intimate day. But if you've watched Meghan's Netflix projects before, you know the beats. There's always a neatly packaged smile, a perfectly styled countertop prop, and just enough chatter to suggest this is all organic, while every move feels choreographed. Sources who've been near the set allege that nothing down to the angle of a coffee mug is left to chance. Even that banter with the chef about her husband's dislike of lobster? Word is, that was the one genuine exchange in the entire teaser, and it only made the cut because it tested well with a small audience. The trouble is, when you stack those manufactured beats together, the joy stops feeling contagious and starts feeling transactional, and that's exactly the whisper swirling now.
Some two people were making what looked like a out of pottery in the middle of that trailer.
That Season 2 isn't about connection at all. It's about conversion. Not converting skeptics into fans, but converting viewers into customers. The inside talk is that while you're watching her frost cupcakes or throw a clay pot, there's a digital team tracking every click, ready to point you toward the very items on screen. A scarf draped just so, the sprinkles she discovered mid-shoot, even the serving dish for those questionable-looking pastries. It's the QVC playbook wearing the clothes of a cozy lifestyle series, and Netflix appears to be leaning into it. They've invested in making sure every frame could be a still image in an online store. Every segment a shoppable moment. The holiday tie-ins, the seasonal decor, the camera lingering on product labels just long enough to plant them in your mind. It's calculated, polished, and to some eyes cold. But here's where it gets messier. People who've seen the internal season plan say the trailer wasn't just selling Season 2. It was stress testing a bigger gamble, a pivot from storytelling to outright sales channel. Which means if this lands well enough with the right demographic, we might see Meghan's brand become even more transactional in real time. And if it doesn't, well, insiders say Netflix has already built its fallback plan. But that was only the beginning.
Is that appealing to anybody? I don't want to see berries falling in a sewer grate.
When the headlines first dropped, they were wrapped in the kind of careful PR language that makes everything sound like a win. Multi-year first-look deal, expanded creative partnership. The phrases rolled out like a champagne toast. But behind those glossy words, the mood inside Netflix was anything but celebratory. This wasn't a continuation of the $100 million splash that Harry and Meghan scored when they first fled the palace gates. This was a trim down, a leash, a quiet acknowledgement that the numbers just weren't adding up anymore. A first-look deal, for anyone who hasn't been around Hollywood's back halls, is not the same thing as a golden contract. It's more like a standing invitation. You bring us your ideas, we'll glance at them before you shop them anywhere else. If we bite, you get to make it here. If we pass, you're free to go find another taker. And here's the kicker. There's no massive lump sum wired into your account just for showing up. You get paid only when something gets greenlit, and you get paid project by project. That is a world away from a guaranteed 9-figure payday. Insiders claim this was Netflix's way of saving face on both sides. No public "we're done here" that would humiliate the Sussexes. No messy Spotify-style fallout with investors asking why the return was so low. Instead, they frame it as an extension, while the fine print strips away the perks. One source put it bluntly, it's a downgrade, but it's a polite one. Why keep them at all? That's where the whispers get strategic. People close to the streamer suggest they're playing a long game. Not with the holiday special, not with the lifestyle show, but with the ticking clock of the marriage itself.
Nothing's going to work for them, is it? The whole thing is, nobody gives a damn because they are tarnished, aren't they?
Netflix remembers the numbers from the Tell-All docuseries. They know nothing these two have released since has come close. If the fairy tale partnership ever fractures, if separate his and hers sit-downs ever hit the table, that's the kind of lightning in a bottle you don't walk away from. Having first dibs on that story is worth keeping them in the stable. Meanwhile, the one new project getting a push is that Christmas special, bundled neatly into the As Ever lifestyle brand. On paper, it's a magical holiday celebration in Montecito. Off paper, industry watchers see it as a made-for-streaming catalog. Every cozy scene timed to nudge a viewer toward the online store. Even the filming window is rumored to be synced with a fresh product drop, so anyone who wants those monogrammed mugs or artisan sprinkles can click and buy before the credits roll. It's a clever pivot if you believe the holiday magic will mask the sales pitch. It's a desperate one if you think the audience has already clocked the pattern. And according to people in the room, Netflix is well aware of the risk. The trailer is only the first wave. They're watching to see if viewers stay engaged when the line between entertainment and advertisement all but disappears. But that was only setting the stage, because the real deja vu is about to hit. You don't even have to be a seasoned critic to spot it. The moment the Season 2 trailer starts rolling, it's like a reel from last year has been dusted off, dressed in a new sweater, and sent back out. Same bouncy background track, same warm-toned lighting that's been tuned to within an inch of its life. Even the "let's spend time together" mantra is recycled word for word, as if the scripts were copy-pasted right alongside the props. There's a reason for that, and it's not creative stubbornness. Season 2 wasn't born from a new burst of inspiration. It was filmed right alongside Season 1. Same sets, same wardrobes, same supporting faces drifting through with their perfectly timed smiles. If you were hoping for an evolution, a shift in tone, or even a fresh set of activities, insiders say you're in for a very familiar ride. The only real tweak, the sales choreography has been sharpened.
Why are we watching these berries fall down a dirty sewer grate?
People close to production allege that the overlap was strategic. By capturing 2 seasons in one shoot, the team avoided the cost and the risk of reconvening later. But it also meant they locked themselves into the original formula before seeing the reaction to Season 1's fruit plates, staged discoveries, and that now infamous fake kitchen. Whatever notes the public sent back, they couldn't adjust to them. The footage was already in the can, and it shows. The beats fall in the same order. A quick craft moment, a brief giggle with a celebrity guest, a close-up of some artisan ingredient. There's even a moment in the new trailer where Meghan marvels, "I could do this every day," echoing a nearly identical clip from last season. For viewers who felt the first run was more style than substance, the deja vu might hit like a brick. Yet there's an extra layer this time. Watch closely, and you'll see how often the camera lingers on a label, a logo, or a full-frame shot of a product that just happens to be available on As Ever. Sources say the product placement wasn't subtle, because it wasn't meant to be. Netflix wanted to test whether viewers would accept the pivot from a lifestyle show to a shoppable experience. The gamble is that loyalty will hold long enough for the audience to click add to cart rather than exit episode. The risk is that the repetition, same look, same tone, same carefully curated chaos, will remind people why Season 1 left them cold. And if they tune out early, no amount of clickable sprinkles will make up for the loss in minutes streamed. Still, the cameos are where the biggest eyebrow raises happen. This time, the guest list is a minefield of its own. But that was about to stir up a whole different kind of backlash. The cameos were supposed to be the sparkle, a way to make the show feel plugged into Hollywood's inner circle, even if the rest of the runtime was all cupcakes and craft glue. But instead of safe, uncontroversial choices, Season 2's guest roster has turned into a masterclass in tone-deaf casting. The most glaring? Chrissy Teigen. For anyone keeping score, Meghan and Harry have spent the past few years positioning themselves as outspoken advocates against online bullying, especially when it comes to children. They've stood on stages, spoken at summits, and aligned themselves with campaigns that frame cyber harassment as one of the defining evils of the digital age. And yet, here comes Chrissy, smiling at the kitchen counter, swapping pleasantries with Meghan, as if the receipts of her own online behavior don't exist. This is the same Chrissy who, as widely reported, once told a teenage girl to end her own life on Twitter. The backlash back then was fierce. The memory hasn't faded.
With love, I don't even know what it means. I'm not even going to pretend I do. Last time was her in her kitchen, but it wasn't her kitchen.
Then there's Jay Shetty, a man with a massive following and a polished, self-help guru image, but one who's faced persistent accusations about fabricating elements of his backstory and lifting other people's content without credit. For a show that sells itself on warmth and authenticity, these are strange bedfellows. Insiders claim that when the booking decisions were made, the conversation wasn't about credibility or alignment. It was about reach, about bringing in names whose follower counts could be leveraged to drive views, regardless of the baggage. The irony? It's exactly the sort of optics over substance decision that critics say has been the Sussex brand's Achilles heel since they left the royal bubble. The posture is all about values, but the partnerships tell a messier story. One former collaborator put it bluntly, "You can't be the face of compassion in the morning and pose with a known cyber bully by the afternoon. People notice, and they don't forget." And yet, this isn't the first time Meghan's orbit has been filled with figures whose public image didn't quite match the messaging. In early earlier seasons of her public life, she's been photographed alongside people later mired in PR disasters, always with the same bright smile and poised demeanor. To some, it's proof she doesn't vet her company closely enough. To others, it's a sign that the cause-driven narrative is more about optics than true alignment. Whatever the motive, the risk is the same. Viewers who are already skeptical will see these cameos as confirmation of their doubts, while those who came in neutral may start wondering how much of the show's heart is genuine. And once that question takes root, it's hard to unask. But the cameos are just the human face of a much larger shift happening behind the scenes, one that's all about scarcity, sales, and an online checkout button. If you listen to the way Meghan's team frames it, every product drop is a runaway success. Sold out in record time has become a refrain, rolled out with the same polished ease as her on-camera laugh. But insiders, and even some frustrated customers, tell a different story. They allege that the sellouts aren't a result of overwhelming demand, they're the product of overwhelming scarcity. According to people familiar with the as-ever operation, the real inventory numbers for many launches are tiny, small enough that an item can sell out within hours, not because thousands of people clamored for it, but because there were only a few hundred to begin with. It's a trick older than influencer marketing itself. Control supply to create buzz, and let the illusion of demand do the rest. That buzz, in turn, fuels the next drop, and the cycle repeats. This is where the holiday special comes in. On paper, it's a warm and fuzzy Montecito celebration. Friends and family decking the halls, whipping up festive recipes, making heartfelt crafts. But sources claim it's been timed down to the week with a coordinated as-ever holiday launch. Every ornament on the tree, every table setting, every prop in those cozy kitchen scenes will allegedly be a shoppable product, ready for purchase before the credits roll.
If that's not what I'm looking at, like, what is that? Also, those mugs are hideous. They couldn't get better mugs?
It's the kind of synergy retail dreams are made of, if the audience doesn't feel like they're being sold to. That's the tightrope. A lifestyle brand can lean into shoppable moments without tipping into infomercial territory. But if the camera starts lingering too long on product labels, if the dialogue feels like it's been written around the merch rather than the other way around, the spell breaks. And when it breaks, viewers stop feeling invited into a holiday gathering. They start feeling like extras in a commercial. There's another wrinkle that critics are already circling. The holiday season, for many, carries a deep connection to faith traditions. In the UK, Catherine has cemented a public image around her Christmas carol services, tied to community and church. Meghan, by contrast, is estranged from much of her extended family, rarely speaks about faith, and has spent recent years cultivating a brand that's aspirational and secular. To her supporters, that's fine. Christmas can be whatever you make of it. To her critics, it's another example of taking a mantle without the lived credibility to wear it. Either way, the stakes for this special are high. It's not just a feel-good end cap to the year. It's a litmus test for whether As Ever can successfully merge entertainment and direct-to-consumer sales on a mainstream streaming platform. And if it works, expect the shoppable content playbook to become the blueprint for everything that follows. But there's another playbook Meghan and Harry have been accused of dusting off, one that's far less about building something new, and far more about attaching their brand to something already finished. On the surface, the holiday special wants to radiate togetherness, glittering lights, a fire in the hearth, friends laughing over shared meals, the kind of montage that makes you want to pour cocoa and lean into the warmth. But for those who have followed Meghan's public life closely, the casting of that family table raises more questions than it answers.
You know as well as I do that unless it involves the British royal family, no one cares.
The fact is, the guest list is almost entirely drawn from the outer circle. There's no sign of her father, no presence from half-siblings, no aunts, uncles, or cousins. Even Harry's side, the royal side, remains absent, with no appearances from his brother, sister-in-law, or father. For viewers with long memories, the absence feels stark, especially in a format that sells itself on showing you how to Christmas with your loved ones. It's not lost on critics that in the UK, Catherine has made Christmas a hallmark of her public image. Her carol services have become a televised tradition, rooted in community, charity, and church. The imagery is candlelit, solemn yet uplifting, tied directly to the idea of faith and service. Meghan's Montecito version, by all early accounts, it's faith-free and product-heavy, with the only service being the one that delivers you her branded wares in 2 to 3 business days. That contrast has already become fodder for op-eds and gossip columns. Some frame it as 2 different visions of the season, one traditional, one modern. Others see it as a case of brand opportunism, wrapping a sales pitch in the visual language of holiday togetherness. The risk for Meghan is that the gap between image and reality becomes too obvious to ignore. When viewers notice the missing family members, the cozy vibe starts to feel curated rather than lived.
All right, here's the fake house. Now they get some more shots of the fake house that she rented because it's not her house.
Sources close to Netflix say they're aware of the tension. They also know controversy can drive curiosity. The holiday special is being positioned not just as content, but as a kind of marketing experiment. Can a celebrity sell the illusion of communal festivity without actually having her community at the table? If enough people tune in to find out, the gamble pays off no matter how the critics slice it afterward. But there's another layer of skepticism building, and it has nothing to do with who's in the room. It's about how much of the special was actually built from scratch, and how much may have been adopted from someone else's work, then dressed in Archewell branding. Because if the whispers are right, Meghan and Harry may be revisiting one of their most controversial habits yet. The premise sounds uplifting enough. A short film spotlighting young dancers from Uganda's Masaka region, many of whom have faced unimaginable loss from famine and the HIV/AIDS crisis, using music and movement to overcome hardship. On its own, it's the kind of story that earns universal goodwill.
Cooking, well, sort of just cutting up some fruit and saying that, you know, this is what weekends are for, just for me to understand how people care so much about how they eat their melons, apparently.
But according to film industry chatter, there's a wrinkle that could change how people see it. The project, titled Masaka Kids: A Rhythm Within, is already listed on IMDb as completed, long before Netflix or Archewell attached their names. That detail has fueled a growing rumor that Meghan and Harry didn't originate the project at all, but stepped in late to slap on their logo and claim a share of the spotlight. If true, it wouldn't be the first time. The Live to Lead documentary stirred similar controversy when participants, most notably former New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, publicly clarified that the Sussexes were not involved when their interviews were filmed. Ardern went so far as to suggest she might not have participated had she known they would be attached later. The optics were awkward then, a repeat could be worse now. For Netflix, co-branding an existing worthy project can be a win-win. It fills the content pipeline and ties the streamer to feel-good storytelling. For Meghan and Harry, it's a way to be seen as champions of inspiring causes without the heavy lift of producing them from the ground up. But the downside is obvious. If collaborators or press start highlighting how little actual creative control Archewell had, the narrative shifts from supporting important voices to taking victory laps on someone else's marathon, and this time the stakes are higher. The Masaka Kids project is deeply tied to Harry's long-standing focus on Africa. That connection should in theory be an easy PR win, but it also reopens a more uncomfortable conversation about white savior optics, a criticism Harry has faced before. If the public perceives that Archewell's main contribution was to repackage a story already being told by local voices, the backlash could echo louder than the applause. Still, there's an audience who won't care about the production timeline or the branding politics. For them, the story's emotional pull will overshadow the backstory. Netflix is betting on that group being large enough to drown out the noise, but behind closed doors, some in the industry are already asking how many more borrowed projects Archewell can attach itself to before the formula starts to feel tired. And looming over all of it, a fresh round of drama from Harry's charity world, drama that could make the white savior critique impossible to ignore.
The biggest bully in the world, Chrissy Teigen, is now part of this show. How the just tone deafness of Meghan Markle.
For years, Harry's charitable identity has been closely tied to his work in Africa. It's the through line in his speeches, the place he often says gave me purpose after his mother's death, and the cause that has shaped much of his public-facing philanthropy. But in recent months, that legacy has been clouded by something far less inspirational, a messy split from the very charity he co-founded. The organization in question, built to support children affected by HIV/AIDS in Lesotho and Botswana, has been part of Harry's brand since his 20s. But according to multiple reports, the relationship between the Duke and the charity's leadership soured badly. Dr. Sophie Chanduka, a respected figure in the global health space and a member of the board, is said to have accused Harry of bullying, claiming his involvement had become toxic to the charity's reputation. Those are words no high-profile patron wants attached to their name, especially one who has made compassion his calling card. Behind the scenes, the split wasn't just about personality clashes. Insiders claimed there were frustrations over Harry's style of fundraising. One particularly pointed critique was the reliance on high society polo matches and champagne galas, often held in Florida or other exclusive enclaves far from the communities the charity served. Dr. Chanduka reportedly saw it as emblematic of a bigger problem: the optics of wealthy, predominantly white donors raising money in luxury settings for the poor children of Africa, without a direct, visible connection to the people they were helping. It's the exact kind of tableau that fuels white savior criticism.
I wanted some huge, honestly, what a load of how is that allowed?
Then came the part that has charity watchers shaking their heads. Stung by the fallout, Harry is now rumored to be exploring the creation of a rival organization, one that would operate in the same space with similar goals but without the colleagues who pushed him out. A source quoted in the Mail on Sunday framed it bluntly: He wants to outflank them. In other words, start fresh, but not necessarily rethink the approach. From a PR standpoint, it's risky. Building a new foundation from scratch is a monumental task, especially if potential partners are wary of aligning with a brand that's just been labeled disruptive and toxic in a high-profile arena. And if the structure or strategy looks too much like the one he just left, critics will be quick to ask if this is about the children or about salvaging pride. Even for those sympathetic to Harry's intentions, there's an elephant in the room: geography. Why in all his years in California has he not championed equivalent causes closer to home? Los Angeles has one of the largest homeless populations in America, including thousands of at-risk children. Skid Row is minutes from his Montecito mansion by helicopter, yet his charitable focus, at least in public, remains fixed across an ocean.
Is this working? She's always such an expert, but then she's so relatable because she never really knows, is she?
Christian Bale, of all people, has been photographed building foster homes in LA for siblings at risk of being separated by the system. That kind of hands-on, local contribution would go a long way toward reshaping Harry's image in the United States. The trouble is, local work doesn't carry the same global leader optics, and according to those who know him, Harry still craves that stage, the one that lets him present as an international humanitarian rather than just a California transplant. The irony is that the more he leans on faraway causes, the more those white savior critiques harden in the public consciousness. And the timing of this renewed African focus, coming so soon after the Masaka Kids branding chatter, only amplifies the perception. Through all of this, Meghan has remained publicly silent. No Instagram post defending his record, no warm anecdotes and interviews, no joint appearances to show a united philanthropic front. For a couple who have made standing up for each other part of their origin story, that absence is noticeable, and in the court of public opinion, silence is rarely neutral. Which brings us to the next thornier question, one that's starting to cast a shadow over every red carpet smile and every coordinated Netflix press shot. When Harry was still the palace's spare, one of his most talked about moves was that fiery statement defending Meghan in the early days of their relationship. He called out what he described as racist undertones in British press coverage, broke protocol to stand up for her publicly, and in doing so, cemented himself as her champion. Over the years, that pattern held. In the Oprah interview, he sat beside her, echoing and amplifying her grievances. In his memoir, he spilled private text exchanges between Meghan and Catherine, something almost unthinkable for a royal because he felt it helped her side of the story. In docuseries Soundbites, he painted himself as her protector, the one who saw her pain and stepped in. That's the backdrop that makes her current silence so jarring.
Honestly, how to cut a piece of bread, it's just lovely. And a bunch of, oh God, man, she's awful. Have you seen that? Oh, talk to me.
Okay.
Harry is facing arguably one of the most reputationally damaging periods of his post-royal life, the charity split, whispers of toxicity, and a growing chorus of white savior critiques. There are also ongoing legal tangles and a cloud of doubt about the future of his philanthropic ventures. And through it all, Meghan's public voice has been absent. It's not that people expect her to join every battle, but the contrast between his unwavering public defense of her and her current low profile is hard to miss. On her birthday, she posted a polished thank you to my husband in passing. No photo of him, no personal words about his struggles, just a subtle nod between shots of herself.
It looks like a salad. What on earth? She made some cheese on it. Why is this fantastic looking?
For those who remember the teary-eyed "my wife" refrains from Harry, the asymmetry is striking. Some in her camp argue this is strategic, that Meghan knows stepping into Harry's current controversies could invite more heat, and that silence is her way of avoiding making things worse. It's the classic Hollywood instinct. Don't attach yourself to a headline that could hurt your brand. But to others, especially critics, it looks like the very behavior the couple once accused the royal family of. Remember, they claimed the firm failed to publicly defend Meghan when she was under fire. Now, in the eyes of some, she's leaving Harry to weather the storm alone. Industry insiders are split. One source close to Netflix suggests Meghan is simply in brand tunnel vision right now, focused on the as-ever rollout and the holiday specials performance metrics. She's treating this like a launch window, the source said, and nothing, not even bad press about Harry, can be allowed to derail it. Another observer was more blunt. Harry has given up far more for this marriage than Meghan ever has. Publicly defending him should be the easiest thing in the world. The fact that she's not says something. And here's where Netflix's long game comes back into play. The streamer isn't blind to the cracks in perception, even if they're not cracks in the marriage itself. They know that if the narrative ever shifts from us against the world to each protecting their own brand, the hunger for separate tell-alls will spike overnight, and they've positioned themselves to have first pick if that day comes.
And did you see Jamie Kern Lima? Her podcasting friend is appearing in season 2, so we're gonna get more of the moans and the yes.
For now, the Sussexes are still a package deal in the credits, but in the court of public opinion, the split screen is already forming, and that raises the question Hollywood's been whispering for months. In Hollywood, Distance can be polite or it can be pointed. And lately, the distance between Meghan and Harry and the industry they once hoped to conquer feels deliberate. When they first inked that 9-figure Netflix deal, they were everywhere. A-list events, red carpets, private dinners with power players. It was easy to imagine them becoming staples of the celebrity circuit. But as the months have rolled on, the invitations have slowed, the photo ops have thinned, and the collaborations have dried up. Part of that is the numbers. The Harry and Meghan docuseries was a juggernaut, pulling in tens of millions of views in days. But since then, the Polo documentary fizzled. Heart of Invictus came and went with barely a ripple. Live to Lead landed in near silence.
I can't get over the sewer grate. Why are we dropping berries into a sewer? What the heck is this? Ugh, everything is just so bland.
And with love, Meghan Season 1 was, at best, a mid-tier performer for Netflix. In an industry where your last hit defines your future, that track record makes people wary. But it's not just about viewership. Several insiders say there's a perception problem, one that's harder to fix than ratings. The couple's public brand leans heavily on values, compassion, and authenticity, yet their partnerships and content choices often seem to prioritize optics, celebrity proximity, or lately, direct sales. That dissonance hasn't gone unnoticed in boardrooms. A producer who's worked with streaming platforms put it bluntly: it's hard to pitch them for serious projects when the audience keeps asking if this is about the cause or about the merch. That's why the first look deal reads, to many in the business, less like a fresh chapter and more like a holding pattern. Netflix isn't betting big money on their next idea. They're reserving the right to say yes if lightning strikes again. And the biggest bolt of lightning they've ever thrown? It wasn't a craft segment or a polo match. It was the story of their own relationship, told in intimate, controversial detail.
This fever dream ever end? Couldn't even make it through the trailer. Oh my god. Yeah, exactly. Shitflix. Well, this looks terrifying. She is insufferable.
If that story ever develops a sequel, whether in the form of renewed royal ties, a high-profile split, or competing memoirs, Netflix will want to be first in line. Until then, the streamer seems content to keep the Sussexes in the waiting room. They'll air the holiday special, watch the as-ever sales data, and see if the shoppable content experiment pays off. They'll quietly greenlight low-risk co-branded projects like the Masaka Kids short, which bring feel-good optics without massive budgets, but they won't gamble another $100 million on a slate of untested ideas, not when the track record is mixed and the public narrative could turn on a dime. For Meghan and Harry, the challenge is simple on paper and brutal in practice: deliver something that breaks through again, without leaning solely on the drama of their private lives. Because if they can't, the Hollywood retreat will continue, not with a bang, but with a gradual fading from the guest list. And once you're no longer part of the conversation in this town, it's almost impossible to get back in. Drop your thoughts below, like, subscribe, and stay tuned. The next video is waiting, and you won't believe what's coming next.